Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Well, Reggie Bush has his Heisman Trophy back.
Finally.
The great national nightmare is over.
14 years of absurdity.
I have maintained since NIL came out that he should get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I saw that Jordan Addison was offered something like $2 to $3 million. Oh, and a house.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's the difference? And Reggie Bush, back in the day.
From 03 to 05.
Back in the day, so let's just talk about his 2005 season, which was great. He earned his Heisman Trophy. But back in the day, in terms of what the rules were structured like at the time, all right, losing the Heisman Trophy at that moment was probably the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
But then when NIL came in, it became obvious that in the current climate, okay, it needed to be given back. And so so they were able to get it back. And he should have had it back years ago. When they started NIL, they should have given him the Heisman Trophy back. And when all these laws started to be passed about NIL, he forfeited the trophy in 10, and and when NIL came up, it encompassed everything was alleged to have done.
Yeah. Getting paid for different things,
Right.
what have you.
Right.
It's pretty much what NIL players just said, get today. He just did back in 2003, 2005.
Well, it's alleged that he did.
Alleged.
Yeah. Right. And and so he gets it back, and he should get it back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the rules are structured in such a way where you're sitting there saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, he doesn't have it because of what?
Mm-hmm. 3 years of them being like, we're not going to give him it back. We're not going to give him it back. Oh, now you are. After months of pressure and years of pressure.
But it should have become obvious right away that he should get it back because of what the current structure was. You're going to change the rules to then match up what a guy has done. Then he should have received it back years ago. The fact that it took this long, that's the absurdity of it. Because what Caleb Williams received this past year at USC legally is exponentially more than what Reggie Bush ever got. Well, they both have Heisman Trophy winners, all right? And he, when the rules changed, that's when it should have changed. He should have gotten it back, and he at least now has it. So.
He has it now. The greatest injustice in the sports world is back. Reggie Bush has his Heisman.
Other than the Knicks officiating with.
Of course, yeah, which
totally favored your team.
And the report came out, the 2-minute report, that yes, Maxey was fouled twice. Yes, there should have been a foul called or a timeout given for the first time of Nick Nurse asking for it. The second one should not have been given. So the refs were right because he didn't have possession of the ball, which that was correct. He didn't have the ball.
Well, if he got the first time out, he couldn't have had the second time.
Yes.
He only had one left.
Yes. And then what makes me laugh a little bit at least was...
I'm sorry. We're not up to that part yet? Oh, I'm sorry.
Was that the ref said in the 2-minute report, yes, Tyrese Maxey shoved off Josh Hart, but it wasn't a big enough shove. So he shoved off, but that's not a shove?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's over.
I know, but
right? But the bottom line is, okay, were there officiating mistakes?
Yes.
Yes. But I keep going back to the fact that I'm sorry, okay, the officials had nothing to do with you boxing out the wrong guy and losing an offensive rebound.
Yeah.
Okay? When the ball was loose on the floor and two of your guys don't make a big effort to get to the ball, Okay, that's not officiating. When you miss a free throw, that's not officiating. Right? Okay, these are all you things that you can control. Okay, that's. I mean, that's the part that just gets in these controversies. That stuff gets glossed over.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like, watch the game.
I agree.
When you watch the game, the team that actually wanted to win the game won the game. And that's.
Yeah, he's right. But speaking of Tyrese Maxey, he won Most Improved Player of the season.
Oh, yeah, he's good. No, he's a good
he
player.
narrowly beat out Kobe White of the Chicago Bulls.
Right.
Kobe White got second.
Kobe
Third,
White's a good player.
Kobe White's a good player. Third place was Alperen Şengün. Fourth was Jalen Williams from the OKC Thunder. And fifth was Jalen Brunson. Came fifth in the voting. So it was.
I don't know if I would have put him as most improved. He was pretty darn good last year. So,
but then again, so what? This award is so weird, and I know. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Ja Morant, when he won it, he beat Desmond Bane.
Yeah, but those are the only 5 guys that played 65 games.
Yeah,
it does eliminate the pool.
But the fact that there's this weird like, oh, well, he is this star. Well, he was good already. We knew Maxey was going to be great, but there are a lot of players like Kobe White who like was not that good, made this jump to like an almost. Yeah, really, all-star-ish level. Yeah, very good level. Like, that is a more difficult jump than what Maxey's made, where he just all of a sudden has the ball more. And it's the thing Ja Morant talked about when he gave the award to Desmond Bane after he won it. He was like, I don't deserve it. We already knew I was great. I didn't really change that much. I got more efficient, I guess. It was like, Desmond deserves us more. Desmond became, instead of a 2-point scorer, he's a 20-point scorer, and he plays the same number of minutes. That's a gigantic shift. Yeah. So, whatever. Maxey won, and that was the first award we've now received in terms of they're going to slowly come out, and we'll get the rest of them as they happen. But
I don't care.
That is fair.
I mean, and I do that with every award, as you know.
Yeah.
I don't care. I remember last year, Philadelphia fans were Embiid. I'm like, going, what does it matter? Right? Then and the award comes out. I think
it's like
were they already eliminated from the playoffs? I said, you lost in the second round. I said, what is it? I said, we're at the point. Tell me who the American League MVP was in 2020.
Yeah.
Who?
No idea.
All right. Who's the American League MVP in 2014? Like nobody knows this stuff. You got to go look it up.
Yeah.
Right? If it's something you have to look up, is it really that great? I mean, it's great, and you get a bonus, and it to be recognized. That's tremendous, you know, the whole deal. But you got a guy now whining, moaning, and complaining about his last MVP award because he missed by 1 vote of being unanimous. It's like the Yankee fans, right? Derek Jeter wasn't unanimous because Dan Shaughnessy didn't vote for him. All you got to do is get 75%. After that, it's gravy. Just like that's all you got to do.
Well, awards aside, last night there, of course, were more NBA games played because the playoffs are going on. And in the game that was, I think, the weirdest, just based on like who scored what thing, the T-Wolves beat the Suns 105-93. The top scorer of the game was Jaden McDaniels with 25 points. Yeah. He outscored Ant Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, all of them. It was the Suns were bad, and they are bad. And people say, oh no, they just can't figure it out. They aren't a good team. Like they're a really razor thin team in terms of number of players that can actually play the game. They lost Grayson Allen for a second straight game due to an ankle injury, which now looks really bad for him, and he might be out the rest of the series. So all of a sudden, you lose any 3-point shooting you had. You lose one of the few players who actually could play.
Besides Booker.
But like, you take out their big three, Nurkic isn't going to shoot you 3-pointers.
Well, it's amazing now what Chris Paul meant to that team.
Yeah. Chris Paul clearly meant more than anyone thought he did. Like, they're playing with almost nobody at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing with 7 guys now. They're playing with Durant, Nurkic, Beal, Booker, Royce O'Neal, Drew Eubanks, and Eric Gordon. That's who they're playing with because Grayson Allen's hurt. They're playing with 7. 7's not going to win you anything, especially when your team doesn't shoot threes. They just don't. Like, they have gotten themselves into a terrible position where Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns combined for 27 points. 27. If you told the Suns, yeah, in game 2, Cat and Ant are going to have 27 combined, would you have thought they would win that game? Hypothetically?
No offense, I never really thought about it.
Well, the answer is probably yes. All things considered. I know you don't answer things.
But see, I'm the big believer that other people can do things too.
I know.
You're in the league for a reason.
I know, but
it's like the first time the Celtics won a championship in the Larry Bird era, who was the MVP of the finals? Cedric Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When the Warriors won their first title, who was the MVP?
Iguodala. Andre
Iguodala. Like, other people, they're in the league. Other people can do things too.
I know.
I mean, the monumental playoff Roy game, Brandon Roy for Portland, was celebrated yesterday. Like, they got all these players, and this guy goes out and goes crazy. Okay, well, that stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're in the league for a reason. You're not there just to take up a spot. So he's the one that had a good game last night, and give the T-Wolves credit. They said, you know what, you're playing well. Let's get you the ball.
Yeah. Well, they won. They're up 2-0 going to Phoenix now for game number 3. The Pacers beat the Bucks 125-108.
Where are they going back?
To Phoenix.
Because Jerry was in the hallway, said they were going back to Pahonix. I'm like,
oof, so many barbs.
Where do we find these people?
The Pacers took down the Bucks. So they were, by the way, the Pacers were the first away team to win this playoffs. Home wins were 12-0 going into the Pacers-Bucks game. 12-0. So the first away team won with the Pacers beating the Bucks, and then the Mavs followed that up by beating the Clippers 96-93. Kawhi is back, but he looked slow and tired. He looked like Embiid has, where you could tell he was a step off, and that's going to happen when you're out for a couple weeks, hurt. But Luka and the Mavs got the job done, 96-93. They then take the 1-1 advantage home to them, so now they have home court, which is always big in the NBA side of things. So
yeah, especially when it comes to officiating.
When it comes to officiating, especially.
Were you the home team?
Yes, we were, sir.
Okay, just checking.
And tonight is the next couple games, the Heat Celtics, yeah. Pelicans Thunder, and then after that, Thursday is the flip side of the games we had a couple days ago, Cavs Magic, Knicks Sixers, Nuggets Lakers. So all fun games to come on the NBA side of things. It's an interesting playoff so far. It's gone about pretty much what we thought it would. But speaking of going what we thought it would, the Steelers have not picked up Justin Fields' option, it looks like.
Or Russell Wilson.
So they have quarterbacks this year. Beyond this year, who knows?
No, nobody does know beyond this year. I'm not surprised that it didn't pick up his 5th year. Not surprised at all. Why would you pick up Wilson's extra year?
Yeah.
I mean, what has he done the last couple of years?
Diddly.
When they're picking up your option, that is a performance-based move. And because it's a performance, there are very few performance-based moves made anymore. A lot of stuff is like, hey, you got a 10-year contract because of what you've done in the past. And then, of course, the odds of you fulfilling that are very long. So
I don't know if you saw these numbers, but I believe Paul Hembo from ESPN went through and looked at the quote-unquote hit or miss rate of first-round picks from 2000 to 2019 in terms of players who signed a second contract with the team they were drafted by.
Right.
So they signed a new contract.
And the second contract's the whole ball game.
Yes.
Now remember, if you are a first-round pick, if you are a first through third-round pick, you have to play your way out of the league. Because you're going to get opportunities. It may not be the same team, but you're going to get opportunities left and right. And I'll give you an example. A guy that, in my opinion, has had one really good year, and that's the year his team won the Super Bowl. That's Nelson Aguilar. Well, he's still in the league, but he is not even remotely close to a third or fourth tier receiver in the league. But he was a first-round pick, so there's the talent that people keep thinking, if we can just harness that. If you're a 4 through 7 or a free agent, through performance, you have to play your way into the league for a second contract.
Yes. So out of all the players drafted, all 635 over the 20-year span, 2000 to 2019, the best position for hit rate by a large margin was center. Out of the 12 centers drafted, 11 signed contracts and 1 did not. So it was a 92% hit rate. Second on this list at 59% was tackles. Then guards were third. So the O-line is pretty much the best place where you're drafting someone. You expect them to get to a second contract. More than half the time you expect that to happen. Can you tell me who was last on this list? What position?
Safeties?
Nope.
Really?
Fourth, we have linebackers at 48%, quarterbacks at 46%, edge rushers, who have the most draft picks, by the way, in that 20-year stretch, at 44%, D tackles at 40%, cornerbacks at 38%, running backs at 38%, safeties at 34%, tight ends at 33%, and wide receivers at 27%. Out of 77 receivers taken, only 21 have signed second contracts with the team they were drafted by.
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney. Not a great hit rate with receivers, which makes sense because a lot of receivers are drafted and they just don't pan out. It happens a lot. Pretty much all the Raiders receivers, Jacoby Ford, Darius Hayward-Bay, like a lot of those guys don't end up with the team long term. So, unsurprising.
I'll give Bay some quiet credit though. Kept himself alive in the league for years because he could play special teams. For a guy that's a first-round pick that thinks he's going to, go into the league and dominate the league and use his speed and everything like that, to figure out quickly where you fit in the pecking order and say, I'll do whatever the team needs, I give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. So. He's been good. And a position we talked about in terms of the 40 to 40%-ish range, the D-line and linebackers. That's what we're going to talk about today in terms of the draft going into tomorrow. So the two D tackles that are of note, Byron Murphy II, out of Texas, and then Jerjon Newton, who we got to see for Illinois. He's good. Like, really, really ridiculously good. Am I wrong for thinking that?
I noticed.
Yeah. So tell me about him, because Penn State got to see him up close and personal this season, and it felt like he was a game wrecker in all sense of the word.
Yeah, he and Randolph are the two guys up front for them, and they control Randolph pretty well, but they really struggled controlling Newton in the game. Really good player. I mean, no getting around it. Quick off the ball, plenty of upper body strength. Tracks the ball really well. I mean, sometimes you can get there, but if you're not tracking the ball, you'll end up in the wrong spot. He tracks the ball really well. And he's also a guy that makes plays, and going into the game, you have to somehow control him. Like, he is a high priority on your scouting report, yet he still makes plays. And I believe he was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year this year in the Big Ten. He was on my ballot, but not as the one. I picked somebody else. I'll tell you exactly what I picked. I picked Adisa Isaac.
We'll discuss him in a little bit.
But that's what he does. I mean, and he is. It's one thing that in watching the Kansas tape, because Penn State was getting ready to play Illinois, and Kansas was the best opponent they had played. So that's the one I wanted to watch. And that's the one where Jack and I both told Andy, like, hey, we walked away going, wow, that Kansas offense is good. Kansas did a good job of controlling him.
Mm-hmm.
And what gave him trouble was because Daniels only played in 3 games this year for Kansas at quarterback. Well, he can really move. His problem was his back. That was a big issue for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he had trouble tracking him down. I mean, and the Kansas offense went crazy over these guys. But against Penn State, on a day where most of the Illinois defenders were okay, he was exceptional. He played great.
So he's going to translate well to the NFL.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
So will Byron Murphy.
Yeah.
He's 6'1", built like a tank. But those are the guys on the inside. On the outside are the guys that we are very familiar with at Penn State, because out of the top 10 edge rushers in this draft, 2 of them are Nittany Lions, Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Alongside them are guys like Dallas Turner, Leatu Latu out of UCLA, Jared Verse from Florida State, Darius Robinson from Missouri, a bunch of players. So,
and they're all really good.
They are all really good.
In that group, besides the Penn State players, the guy that intrigues me the most is Verse.
So why Verse? What intrigues you about him?
You just look at the explosion off the edge. He's got, we always talk about the energy which the guy plays with. The cool term is like, in NIL, hey, what's his bag? Like, just say it right out. What's his money? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, like, it's his motor. I'm like, okay, great. Well, the guy plays with an all-out effort. He plays like a guy that started his career at Albany.
Mm-hmm.
And wants to prove on every single play that he belongs in Division I.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he played.
Yeah.
Right? Well, guess what? He more than earned it. And now he's the kind of guy that's going to come in and he's going to go after every play like he deserves and belongs in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other guys are really good. He's just the one that intrigues me the most. I'm not saying he's the best, but he's the one that intrigues me the most because his starting spot was not in the area of he's a 5-star guy.
Yeah.
Bring him in. Hey, here we go. He is a perfect example of developing to the highest level on his own clock.
Mm-hmm.
And once the clock kicked in, he turned out to be a great college player.
That he is. And alongside him in that top 5 bunch, expected to go first round, Darius Robinson out of Missouri.
Yeah.
But moving up, you've got, and we'll save Chop for last and Adisa for last, Leatu Latu out of UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. He's very good. He is slippery on O-linemen, which is kind of his big thing of like, he's tough to hold and tough to get a hold of. He's 6'5", he's big. And then, of course, the guy who's going to go probably top 10 somewhere, Dallas Turner, going to be the most likely first defender off the board. If you're guessing D-line linebackers, he's a freak athlete is what he is. He ran a 4.46 in the 40, jumped 40.5 inches in the vertical, which just is one of those, like, you see those stats, those numbers, you're like, that's crazy. And I know you're not a stats guy, but he's going to be good in the next level. And then the last 2.
Well, it's not a question of being a stats guy. It's just after a while, he jumped this high, he ran. It's like, okay, can they play football?
Can they play the game? And that is something that both of the Penn State players in this draft can do, both Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac. So we talked to them a little bit on Monday.
Well, Manny thought that Chop was the defensive player of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how highly Manny thought of what, and again, this is a guy that breaks down the video of every practice, every game of what he did. To him, he was the best.
So for those who do not know Chop Robinson going into this draft, for those who may not have watched us all year rave about this guy, how good is he? And what is he going to look like in the NFL? We touched on it on Monday, but I want to touch on it more again here because now we're fully breaking down the defense.
Well, look, this is a guy that, first of all, you know why he's called Chop?
I do not.
Okay. So I'm sure this will come out. It probably came out in Hey Rookie, but I haven't watched Hey Rookie this time because I haven't had a chance to. Shannon Furman does a great job with that. But when he was born, he was a 14-pound baby.
Oh boy,
14 pounds. I remember him telling the story. I asked him about the story at Quarterback Club.
Mm-hmm.
He says, so his father is calling him pork chop. He says it finally got to a point where he says, and I can't remember what age it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't recall if he was in single digits or he was teens or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I can't go through life being called pork chop, right? He says, got it down to chop. And I looked over, I said, good football name. He goes, yeah.
It is a good football name to have.
And so that's how he got the nickname. Look, when he came up, Maryland used him a little at outside linebacker, sort of a stand-up end, but mostly outside linebacker. When he came here, they made him into an edge rusher exclusively, not going to play linebacker. And I think that made a big difference for him. He can attack you from a three-point stance. He can attack you from a two-point stand-up. Right? The fact that he's at least played linebacker before gives him the ability to drop in pass coverage in a zone blitz, which, obviously with Adisa Isaac, we've brought that up many times. Mm-hmm. It gives a defensive coordinator the versatility part of it. That makes a difference because even the Dallas Cowboys, as often as they are rushing Micah Parsons, they'll drop him in coverage. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to his time of playing linebacker here at Penn State. And he can do all that. Terrific get off, excellent angles to the quarterback, rarely runs himself out of a play. Mm-hmm. All right? I mean, some guys run themselves out of a play. He doesn't. He doesn't. And that's and he understands and knows how to play the game, and he plays the game hard. He's a good tackler. He's good against the run. But as a guy going after the quarterback, he is relentless. And it's not the number of sacks. It's the number of times he forced a guy off the spot and set up somebody else for a sack. He did a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And on the other side of him this season was Adisa Isaac, who's looking to be a second day draft pick. Mm-hmm. Probable second rounder. Yep. I would expect him to go in the second. Yep. But what is someone going to get out of the 6'4" Isaac?
First of all, a great person. I can say that about Chop, too, by the way. Mm-hmm. Great person. His family background is one that is remarkable, sad at the same time, but remarkable. And whatever money he can make in life, I hope he can make it, help out his mom, do whatever. He is the only sibling in his family that's verbal. It's not hard. It has to be so difficult. I mean, I realize for him because it's a life he leads every day, that he's used to it and does it because it's just what he knows. Mm-hmm. But I want him to make so much money in life. So, because he said, and this is a person that's overcome an injury. Mm-hmm. So he's had to fight back from that. It's been great that he's been able to go through this past season and all those combine workouts and pro days completely healthy, because now everybody can see the great physical gifts he has. He also has length, which is something that's not talked about with him. He has length, which, by the way, we talk about his ability to, Jack and I raved all the time about, he'd drop and how he covered. Like, he covered like a legitimate cover guy, not just I'm taking up a space.
Yeah, he covered like he knew where he was meant to be at all times.
He knew where the ball was. He understood where the coverage was supposed to be. If he's supposed to, like, somebody comes in his area, do I turn him to the help? Mm-hmm. Oh, there is no help, I'll take him. He understood all that. That tells you how smart he is as a player. And like I said, it's now months later, so I can reveal how I voted. I actually voted for him for Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year because I just thought he was that good. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just me. And I told him that. I said, well, I know you got one vote for Defensive Player of the Year. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, I gave it to you. He goes, wow. I said, so you got one.
And if anyone wants to read up on him, Dan Pompei from The Athletic did a story on him.
Okay. And it's about his family. And
it's about his family, everything else. It came out April 8th, so 2 weeks ago. I remember I read it when it came out, and I was just like, this is amazing, and he's awesome. And so if anyone wants to read up on that, story came out April 8th on Adisa Isaac. It was an awesome story to read.
His mother showing up at every game is just really
amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm excited to see him.
People don't know sometimes the stories of some of these guys, which I understand. That's why if you're a member of quarterback club, you do get this stuff, because we don't just sit there and go, so how was practice this week? I don't ask him how practice was during the week.
Practice? Talking about practice? Practice. And jumping from Penn Stater to Penn Stater, we now go over to the linebacker position. It's the last place I want to talk about for players today. The draft, the expectation is there's going to be maybe one person that goes in the first round. That's Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He's kind of the one guy people expect linebacker-wise to jump up there. You've got guys like Junior Colson out of Michigan. A few guys from...
Junior Colson is a good player, and he's a guy that every single time Penn State played Michigan, he was always the name Jack and I brought up. And that include Aiden Hutchinson and all the other guys that they had. But he said, look, this is a guy that's one of those solid, steady, smart, makes plays guys, around the ball kind of guy, knows where the ball is, tracks it down, is involved in the play. I mean, that's Junior Colson. He'll be a good – he won't be an every down linebacker for somebody. But first and second down, he'll be a good player for a team.
And he's going to be a day two guy. He's going to go most likely in the second round somewhere. His current comp per ESPN is Nick Bolton. So it's not a bad player you get it compared to. In terms of Penn State guys, the one that's there, made big time wise, Curtis Jacobs. He's expected to be a late day two, early day three player. So we talked about him again, but I want to discuss him more. What is someone going to get with Curtis Jacobs when he goes to the next level, to the NFL? Because he's going to get drafted. To what team, we don't know yet. But what are you expecting out of him on the next level?
Curtis Jacobs will be a good every down linebacker for a team. There'll be times where a team will keep him out there on third down, depending on the situation, because he can handle it. Can he play the pass? Yes. Can you put him to the open field? Yes. Can you blitz with him where he'll scrape off and get a pressure and make a difference? Yes. Can he play the run? Yes. He is a good, solid, well-rounded linebacker, and I really have enjoyed watching him for 4 years here, both on the practice field and in a game, because I felt like he worked at his craft to make himself better. And I thought his decision to come back for this past season was one of those smart decisions where I think he understood that where linebackers are in the league. He came back, made himself better, and was a difference maker for them.
And he's going to go to the NFL. He's going to make some team very happy they took him. And now shifting away from actual players in the draft for a quick second. There has been some news coming out over the past 24 hours that the New York Giants have thoroughly been exploring the idea of moving up to get Drake May. Because it looks like Daniels is going to go second to the Commanders. That's the current thought. It's the big money bet right now is he's going to go second to the Commanders, which means Drake May is left there as the third guy. So Drake May might end up a New York Giant, which of course would mean the Giants would get rid of Daniel Jones in the trade. They'd have to. There's no way that would work. So,
okay, let me give you one of the unsung oddball stats about quarterbacks in the draft.
Let's hear it.
To me, one of the standards happens to be, did the quarterback have a winning record Now, I realize that the winning record doesn't have to do like with you. Right? Your defense can be a horror show.
Jaden Daniels.
your running game may be a horror show. Whatever. There's always it's a day where you played great and the running back fumbled 4 times. Like okay, I got that. But the overall body of work, there have been very, very few exceptions over the years of quarterbacks who had a losing record in college that succeeded in the NFL. Jared Goff is one. He was the first overall pick. Has he succeeded? Yes. Has he been a great quarterback? No. He's in the Hall of Very Good. And by the way, very good gets you contracts.
He's a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Kirk Cousins is in the Hall of Very Good. And guess what? Very good is a cut above most of the quarterbacks in the league.
By very good, you mean $30+ million a year?
Right.
That's not bad.
But I'm just saying, but
yeah.
In other words, I'm talking about pure performance. Okay? Goff has been very good, not great. Daniel Jones was 19-17 as a starter at Duke. Like barely over it. I'm like, I never understood and got the pick. I never understood it. Now, it was also a bad year for drafting quarterbacks, right? Because a lot of people thought the late Haskins was going to be, the late Dwayne Haskins was going to be like maybe maybe a guy the Giants would take, and they didn't. And, of course, then he ended up getting taken by Washington. Right? But he sat there and went, it was a mystifying pick. And that's what you have to avoid with this, is making the mystifying pick.
Yeah.
And here's and to me, a guy that falls into that category is J.J. McCarthy. He is going to be picked, through no fault of his own, by the way, exponentially higher than he should be. Right? Now, it doesn't mean you can't go down to the 3rd round and get Russell Wilson. It doesn't mean you can't go to the 6th round and get Tom Brady, or go to the 7th round and get Brock Purdy. You can. But J.J. McCarthy is not one of the 32 best players in the draft. Now, that should not be the standard, because quarterbacks are going to get picked higher. But name me a game in his career, a game, where he won the game for his team, or he brought the team back, or when the game was over with, oh, man, he was so good today. Which game was that?
Yeah.
That's because there isn't any.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, there isn't any, and that's what's interesting about this. Now, May had a bad game against, back to your point about Drake May, he had a really tough day against Clemson this year, a really tough day. And a lot of people have held that against him. But a lot of guys have a game where you can't be great all the time. I know people expect you to be great all the time, but you can't be. And he didn't have it. But you know what? He's from an athletic family. He's been around winning his entire life. He throws a good ball. He moves really well. He's had exponentially more criticism than really anybody else I've heard in this draft. I mean, there's been more negative stuff about him in the last 2 months, and I don't get it. Right? When it comes to like Caleb Williams, what negative stuff is said about him other than the fact that he pulled that, he's a little flamboyant and he pulled that Utah stuff with his fingernails. Okay? You want to know the best analysis I heard of Caleb Williams? He is great in havoc plays. The problem is 9 times out of 10, he's the one that actually created the havoc.
So he makes it and he does well to get out of it, but he makes it is the problem.
Yes.
Not great.
That's the best analysis I've heard of, because that's exactly right.
Good analysis. And I just want to now go back through real quick some of the more recent first-round quarterbacks taken. Now, we're not going to talk about this past season's draft because it's too early to talk about Bryce or Anthony or CJ or whoever. But previously, of course, 2022, the one taken in the first round was Kenny Pickett. We see if that's gone. 2021, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. Trevor Lawrence has been okay. The rest have been traded.
Trevor Lawrence, again, to that level of very good, not past very good.
He's been good.
Everybody else, no.
Let's see here. Wilson traded, Lance traded, Fields traded, Jones traded. Going back 2020, you have Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love. All have been, I think, good when they've played. Jordan Love, of course, played this season's been good. And, of course, right after them was Jalen Hurts in the second round. Not bad either. The year before that was Kyler, Daniel Jones, and then Dwayne Haskins, as we talked about. The year before that, it's the last one I want to talk about, 2018. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, of course, been great. Josh Allen, I'd say he's a step above.
He's been great. He's been great.
Baker has been hit or miss.
You know what? I give him credit. He's kept his career alive, and he's coming off his best season.
And he got paid fairly. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen,
No, never.
So that is the stretch run here. And if you want to go back even further to 2016, the people forget Paxton Lynch, the first round quarterback.
Yep. Out of Memphis, and it was a pick that I sat back and went, I don't get it.
26th overall to the Broncos.
I said, I don't understand this. I mean, he can't move, and he's a system guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Josh Rosen, never understood it. I was big on Sam Darnold getting picked. I was really big on Sam Darnold getting picked. I was not big at all on Zach Wilson.
The problem was for Darnold, he got picked to the Jets, which is a death sentence. And also in there was the second overall pick in 2017 out of UNC, Mitchell Trubisky.
Right.
So, a lot of misses in there. There were some hits with Mahomes and with other players like Goff's been, of course, as we discussed, good. Kyler Murray.
But again,
all these guys.
Again, with some of these guys, it's been the limited number of reps. In other words, they didn't put a lot on video because they didn't play a lot. Trubisky started for a year. Right? So let's flip it to the other side, the dramatic other side. And it's the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy. Well, he had 4 years of video because he started at 4 years for Iowa State. Well, guess what? Hey, for every 5 great plays he made, he'd make a stinker. Well, that's going to happen when you've got 4 years of video, as opposed to the limited window where now you're trying to make a guess off somebody off 12 games, as opposed to looking at the video of a guy who played 48. All right, well, guess what? In 48 games, okay, warts happen, okay, because not all 48 are going to be works of art. Now, you may win the game, which comes back to the, stick figures or art too, right? But that's, and it's... That's something that we've seen, like Trey Lance. Like, what tape is there of him? Tape is that's an old term. I use on video. But what video is there of him?
Didn't he play like one game that season?
Yeah, but he played at North Dakota State. He put in the season. Then they got into this. And they played the one game, and he wasn't really very good in that game. But look what he can do. Blah blah blah. I'm going. He's out there. No offense. Again, no offense. Those are FCS level receivers and FCS level corners that you're throwing against with the most powerful program in FCS at the time around you.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Carson Wentz. Same story. But the quarterback thing has been interesting with like Drake May has a lot of video. And who gets the most criticism? He does. Because there's more to criticize in there, right? Again, you're going to have a bad day like the Clemson day was not a great day. Okay, that happens. But then you have other guys where it's limited and there's not as much to pick apart because there isn't as much to pick apart. I mean, you'd have to watch practice for 2 years to pick apart what they can and they can't do. And that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree. All of it. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this draft, just for a lot of reasons of the quarterbacks and the receivers as well. I feel like there's this weird emphasis on, and that's why the receivers have such a low hit rate.
Yeah,
The quote unquote hit rate is because there is such an emphasis on these guys to be great off the bat, but you almost never see greatness off the bat. Justin Jefferson was great immediately. That doesn't happen for everyone. Jamar Chase,
That's right.
great immediately.
Yep.
Doesn't happen for everyone.
That's right.
Like, it's just tough to do that. Like, let's go back this past season's draft. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. Zay Flowers got good at the end of the season. That was about it. Jordan Addison was pretty good all season.
Yeah, he was good.
Quentin Johnson didn't do much for the Chargers. Smith and Jigba was for the Seahawks in the first round. Let's go back a year prior. Drake London.
Yeah.
Okay. Garrett Wilson. Okay. Chris Olave's been good, but still okay. Jamison Williams, off-field issues. That's different.
I think he's going to be fine at Detroit.
He'll be
I have
fine.
no problem with that.
Jahan Dotson's been good.
Yeah, he's been good.
Traylon Burks, for the Titans. He hasn't had a quarterback, but Jamar Chase, great. Jalen Waddle, when healthy, good. Devonta Smith, when he's on the field, he's great. Kadarius Toney, different discussion.
Right.
Rashad Bateman, okay, when he's been healthy. Like, you go back through and there's a lot of misses. Jalen Reagor for the Eagles in 2020. We've discussed how that's gone for them so far.
Sure.
The year prior was Hollywood Brown, not with the Ravens anymore. And N'Keal Harry, I don't even know where he is in the league. I know he's in the league somewhere. I don't know where in the league he is. Like, you're missing on so many of these guys that are taken so high up. But in that 2019 draft, you missed on Brown and Harry. After them, Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, Mecole Hardman, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Hunter Renfrow, Darius Slayton, Travis Fulgham's been good, Scotty Miller. Like, there's a lot of guys you hit on later in the draft than there are early in the draft. Like, receivers are so hit or miss, so dependent on who they're playing with. It's just it's a crapshoot for receivers. It's a quarter of them signed contracts with the same team after their first, second contract. A quarter.
Yeah, if I have I think what the Bengals did
Smart.
with Jamar Chase, because many people thought they were going to take Penn Sewell, who has turned out to be
A stud.
an outstanding player for the Detroit Lions. Everyone thought he would be an outstanding player coming out of Oregon. He has turned out to be an outstanding player in the NFL. But the Bengals already had a quarterback, so they didn't have to worry about that. And they had a quarterback who could move, which helped.
And
So they drafted the receiver because they needed to be explosive offensively and put teams on their heels. To me, that is a modern-day draft pick right there.
And really quickly, a part of that what I think does not get talked about enough is the idea of chemistry, of knowing how your player's going to move, and if you're a receiver, you know your quarterback's going to put the ball for you. Burrow and Chase had played together already at LSU. They knew how one another were going to play on the field together. They knew exactly what they were going to be. Jamar Chase running down the field, he knows Joe Burrow's going to hit me here, and I can trust him to do that. And Joe Burrow can trust Jamar Chase is going to make the catch, which is a major thing to have. Half the battle for a quarterback and receiver is the idea of trust. It's why for years it was like, why can't the Patriots get anyone not named Julian Edelman or Damian Amendola or Gronk the ball? It's because Brady trusts those three guys to catch the ball at any time he throws it to them.
Right.
And Chase and Burrow had a trust level already built in. So as soon as they came into the league, they trusted each other. A lot of these guys have to build trust with their new quarterback or vice versa. Like, they have to build the trust. And that's part of the battle for them is like, did Kirk Cousins trust Jordan Addison? He started to trust him towards the season as the season went on. Zay Flowers with Lamar Jackson, same thing.
Zay Flowers got to be really good. He did not have a good championship game against Kansas City. He just didn't. That was youth. That was also being in a spot he really had never been in before. I think he'll play better as time goes.
And you know who was drafted in the 5th round that year, by the way? Puka Nacua.
Sure.
Who got the trust real quick from Stafford, and all of a sudden he had a great season because Stafford trusted him. Tank Dell, 3rd round. CJ Stroud trusted him, so it worked really gosh darn well for them. There is something to be said about trust between a receiver and quarterback, which does not get talked about nearly enough.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can bring a guy in, you can bring in, let's say from this past season, a Treylon Burks in the Titans. But will Ryan Tannehill trust him? Will Malik Willis trust him? Will they do it? That's the question. Like, they have to earn the respect of their player, but in the case of Chase, he didn't have to because they already had it. So it was almost like getting a guarantee of he's going to have a good shot at working out.
Sure. All right.
And it did.
And that's what and again, it, like, Nacua, Purdy, way back in the day, Terrell Davis, obviously Tom Brady. All right. It's all about who can make the transition in the right situation from college to pros with relative ease. So the key is to get yourself drafted into camp and then start proving yourself. Getting into the right situation is important, and this is what Carl Williams, the father of Caleb Williams, brought up when he was talking about the draft. And he was talking about how unfair the draft is because, whatever. Like, hey, Carl, like, hey, this is a league. To me, the league is the business with 32 business entities in it.
Yeah.
Okay? It's all about competition and creating games. If you want to start, I'm not telling him this, if you want to start a rival league, you can. Okay? Because the business is football. Right? The NFL is not football. In the business of football, they're a business. You can start another business to compete with them. Others have tried, only the AFL succeeded. Well, and the AAFC to a point. They got 3 teams absorbed too, way back in the day in the 40s, early 50s. But it's and that's how competition's created. So Trevor Lawrence goes to the worst team in the league. They were 1-15. Remember, they won their opening game. I think they beat Indianapolis on opening day and then lost 15 straight. This is when it was a 16-game season. They're bad. That's how you end up first. You're bad. Right? So you're not stepping into the best situation. Jim Plunkett was the Heisman Trophy winner out of Stanford. He went to the Patriots. The Patriots were just bad. And no matter what he did, he was under more pressure there, and he even had his buddy at wide receiver, Randy Vataha from Stanford, that came with him. And also he was just, he can't get it done. Well, later on, he was with a better team called the Raiders, and he won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Right? He won 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders. Right? Okay. Right? And for those, it was 15 and 18 were the 2 Super Bowls. Right? Because suddenly he was surrounded by better players. Doug Williams was in a terrible situation with Tampa Bay. Now, to his credit, in the 3rd year, not his 3rd year, but Tampa Bay's 3rd year, they made the NFC Championship game, and they lost to the Rams 9-0. But eventually Doug Williams wins the title with Washington where he's surrounded by talent. So, yeah, there is a point to be made about you're going to, like, these top players are going, like Zach Wilson. Who knows how good he is? He's been with a bad team. He hasn't helped the bad team, but he's been with a bad team.
Been with the Jets.
Yeah. I mean,
or in the case of someone like a Trey Lance, he's been kind of stuck. Like, he was stuck behind better players.
That's
right. It was tough for him to try and get a shot. Like, was he taken to give him a shot? Yeah, but they also had a guy in Jimmy G who was their starter. Like, he wasn't going to surpass Jimmy G. Same with Jordan Love. That was the whole deal in Green Bay. He wasn't going to play because Rodgers was there. And all of a sudden, he got the chance to shine with that team. Oh, look at that. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, there's something to be said about fit. Who else is on the team? how good the team is and where you end up. Because sometimes ending up in a place like a Green Bay for him is probably better than ending up in New York, where Zach Wilson's got all the pressure in the world on him because it's New York.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be built for New York City. You've got to be built for Los Angeles.
That's right.
There is a part of that comes with the territory.
That's true. I mean, like, let's face it. I mean, Ed Woodson and Kevin Brown are two great pitchers everywhere else except with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Right. It's the way it is.
It's the way it is. And the way it is for us tomorrow is we will talk about the cornerbacks, safeties, anyone else we have not touched on for the draft, because it is draft day tomorrow. I am excited. I know you are as well. It's going to be very fun to watch that first round.
My last class today, we actually did a mock draft on the board.
I think we'll have to do a mock draft tomorrow. That's what I'm hearing. We're doing a very light mock draft tomorrow, Steve. It's happening, and you can't say no to that.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on